My dad texted coldly, "I disown you. Talk to my lawyer." I replied, "Okay." Then I revealed how he had stolen $85,000 from a veterans charity to cover my brother's gambling debt. "You are a disgrace. I'm removing you from the will. Do not contact us. Speak to my attorney." Those words hit me like a physical blow, vibrating through my phone against the polished mahogany table. I was in a board meeting, for God's sake, surrounded by suits and quarterly projections, and my own father just disowned me via text message. The sheer audacity, the cold, calculated cruelty of it, stole my breath. I reread the message. Twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. My thumbs moved almost on their own, tapping out a single, defiant reply, "Understood." Then I closed my laptop with a quiet click, right as Mr. Henderson, my boss, was mid-sentence about some major client. He paused, his bushy eyebrows lifting, but I was already standing. "Excuse me," I said, my voice eerily steady, normal even. Like my world hadn't just imploded. Like my father hadn't just thrown me away like trash. I didn't run. I walked. My heels clicked a measured, deliberate rhythm against the polished floors, each step a protest against the chaos roaring inside me. The office door closed behind me with a soft thud, and I sank into my chair, reopening my laptop. My fingers knew where to go. They'd logged into this banking portal 1,000 times, checking balances, reviewing statements, making sure all the automatic payments cleared on schedule. The mortgage account loaded first. And that's when I saw it. A personal loan application. Status: pending disbursement. Amount: $50,000. My name, my social security number, and a signature. My signature, but clumsy, wrong, clearly forged. Any forensic accountant would laugh. He hadn't even tried to match the slant of my letters. I picked up my desk phone, dialing a number I knew by heart. First National Bank. Fraud Department. "This is Kevin. This is Addison Clark. Account number 4,782 to 9,163. I'm filing an identity theft affidavit. I need all accounts secured immediately. This is a family member fraud situation." Kevin's voice, initially routine, sharpened instantly. "Can you verify your date of birth and the last 4 digits of your social?" I rattled off the information, my mind racing. I pulled up my personal ledger. The spreadsheet opened, and there they were. 5 years of transactions. Lined up like soldiers. $3,200. Every single month. Without fail. 60 payments. $192,000. For the lake house. My grandmother's lake house. The one she left to all of us. The one my parents promised would be mine someday. "Just keep making the mortgage payments, Addison. We'll transfer the deed when we retire. You'll have your sanctuary. Your peace." Except I hadn't been allowed to visit in 6 months. Airbnb guests, my mother would say. Can't interrupt paying renters. So sorry, sweetheart. Maybe next month. I'd filed all the photoshopped property tax bills, organized them by date. Because that's what I did. I was responsible. I was the rock. I was the walking ATM. A memory surfaced, unbidden. 16 again, standing in our kitchen with 2 paychecks. One from the grocery store. One from the tutoring center. My father's hand on my shoulder, warm, approving. "Addison understands duty," he told my mother. "She's helping with Preston's tuition. She knows what family means." Preston. Golden child Preston, who needed help with college because his grades weren't good enough for scholarships. Preston, who now drove a BMW he couldn't afford and lived in a condo perpetually between investments. Kevin was still talking, confirming the fraud alert, explaining the investigation process. I made appropriate noises, my fingers already opening my email. There was one from 2 days ago. Sender, my neighbor Tina. Subject, FWD, ring camera from Tuesday night. The video loaded. My parents' front porch. Evening light, fading to dusk. My father, Sterling, stood with a cigar, smoke curling. My mother appeared beside him, wine glass in hand. Their voices were chillingly clear. "Addison is just a walking ATM," Sterling said, tapping ash into the planter. She's so desperate for approval she'd pay for the air we breathe. My mother actually laughed. It's a good thing she believes the Airbnb lie. If she knew we sold the lake house to the Millers 6 months ago to cover Preston's bookie debts, she'd cut us off. The video ended. I sat very still. My hands rested flat on the desk, palms down, fingers spread. The office was quiet, just the hum of my computer and the distant murmur of voices. I wasn't unloved. I was defrauded. The distinction mattered. Love is messy, complicated, sometimes cruel in ways you can't quantify. But fraud? Fraud has evidence. Documentation. Patterns. Fraud can be prosecuted. I opened my forensic accounting software, the same program I used for corporate investigations, for tracking money laundering and embezzlement schemes. My fingers hovered for a moment before they started typing. Sterling Clark. Known associates. Financial transactions. The first search returned results immediately. Shell companies. Wire transfers. Patterns that looked wrong, even at first glance. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sterling. Your mother is very upset. You've always been selfish. This time, I didn't reply. Instead, I screenshotted the message and saved it to a new folder on my desktop. I titled it, Evidence. Then I leaned back in my chair and whispered to the empty room, let's see what else you've been hiding. The office was dark, lit only by the glow of my 3 monitors. It was 2:47 a.m. I knew because I'd been watching the clock tick forward for hours, each minute another transaction analyzed, another thread pulled. My coffee went cold around midnight. I didn't care. The forensic software hummed, processing the data I'd fed it. Sterling Clark's banking records, Preston's accounts, wire transfers, deposits, withdrawals. The same tools I used to catch embezzlers, now pointed at my own family. The pattern emerged slowly, then all at once. Preston's checking account showed deposits every 2 weeks. Always cash. Always between $9,000 and $9,800. Never over $10,000. Because $10,000 triggers automatic IRS reporting, and whoever taught Preston about smithing clearly knew their stuff. I pulled up my calculator. 18 months of deposits. The total made my stomach clench. $170,000. I screenshotted everything. Each transaction got its own file, labeled with dates and amounts. My fingers moved automatically, muscle memory from a decade of building cases against people who thought they were smarter than the system. The wire transfers were next. Sterling's business account showed regular payments to something called Sterling Consulting Group, LLC, Delaware registration. I ran a search. The address, 1-1000-247 Industrial Parkway, Wilmington, Delaware. I switched to Google Earth. The satellite view loaded, sharpening into a strip mall. Faded awnings. A cracked parking lot. And there, in the corner of a building that looked like it hadn't seen maintenance since the Reagan administration, a rusted P.O. box service. Sterling Consulting Group didn't have offices. It didn't have employees. It was a paper ghost, existing only to receive wire transfers and disappear money into accounts I hadn't traced yet. I opened another window. The Veterans Memorial Fund financial statements. Public record. I downloaded every PDF from the past 2 years and started cross-referencing dates. Wire transfer from Veterans Memorial Fund checking, March 15, 2024, $8,500. Cash deposit into Preston's account, March 18, 2024, $9,200. My jaw tightened. Wire transfer from Veterans Memorial Fund, July 22, 2024, $12,000. Cash deposit into Preston's account, July 25, 2024, $9,800. Cash deposit into Preston's account, July 26, 2024, $2,100. They split the larger amounts, smuffed them into digestible pieces that wouldn't raise flags. Every single deposit traced back to withdrawals from a charity fund meant for disabled veterans. I created a new spreadsheet. 3 columns, date, Veterans Fund withdrawal, Preston's deposit. The correlation was perfect. 19 separate instances over 18 months. The anger I'd been holding back since yesterday afternoon crystallized into something colder, something precise. This wasn't about family anymore. It was about justice. I saved everything to my encrypted cloud storage. Then I created duplicate copies on 2 external hard drives. One went in my office safe. The other went in my gym bag, which would stay with me until this was over. In the morning, my phone buzzed at 8:15 a.m. I was still at my desk, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Caller ID, Mr. Henderson. Addison, do you have a minute this morning? His voice was careful, concerned. I wondered what my face had looked like when I left that board meeting. I'm in my office now. Good. Come see me when you're ready. I stopped in the bathroom first. My reflection showed dark circles, hair that needed rebraiding, but my eyes were clear, focused. I smoothed down my blouse and headed to Henderson's corner office. He stood by his window, coffee in hand. When I entered, his silver hair caught the morning light, and his expression shifted from worried to alert when he saw my face. Close the door, he said. I did. Addison, I'm going to be direct. You left that meeting yesterday looking like you'd seen a ghost. Then I got an email from your bank's fraud department this morning, copied to you, confirming an identity theft investigation. Do you need our legal department involved? The fact that he'd already done his homework didn't surprise me. Henderson didn't build this firm by missing details. Not yet, I said. But I may need time off in the coming weeks. This is a family matter, but it involves federal wire fraud across state lines. His eyebrows rose slightly. Federal? Yes, sir. He set down his coffee and leaned against his desk. Take whatever time you need. We have your back. And Addison? If you need referrals for attorneys who specialize in this area, I know 3. The tightness in my chest eased slightly. Thank you. One more thing. He pulled a business card from his pocket. Ellen Kowalski, bank fraud investigator I worked with on the Brennan case. She owes me a favor. And she's good at her job. Tell her I sent you. I took the card. The relief felt dangerous, like I might crack if I acknowledged it too directly. My phone rang at 11:30 a.m. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Addison, stop this nonsense. Meredith's voice was shrill, cracking at the edges. Your father only signed your name because he knew you'd say yes. We are family. You need to unfreeze these accounts right now. I tapped the record button on my phone's voice memo app. Forging a signature for a loan is a felony, Meredith. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm. Almost clinical. And since you just admitted on this recorded call that you knew about the house sale and the fraud, you're an accessory. Save your tears for the indictment. I hung up. The voicemail notification appeared 3 seconds later. I saved it to my evidence folder with the timestamp clearly visible. The loan application got officially denied at 2 p.m. The email from First National Bank included a fraud flag notation that would follow Sterling's credit report for the next 7 years. At 4:30 p.m., I got a text from Preston. Just 3 words, "This isn't over." I screenshotted it and filed it with the rest. By the time I left the office at 6 p.m., every joint account Sterling and I shared had been frozen pending investigation. His credit cards were declining across Chicago, Meredith couldn't access the checking account she'd used for 20 years, and I was so tired I could barely remember how to drive home. But the spreadsheet was complete. The dossier was backed up in 3 locations. And tomorrow, I'd keep digging until I knew every dollar they'd stolen, every lie they'd told, every crime they'd committed, in the belief that family loyalty would keep me silent. They taught me to balance books. Now I'd balance the scales. Preston's voicemail reached the firm at 9:23 a.m. on a Thursday. I was reviewing a client's expense reports when Mr. Lepinators, Henderson's assistant, appeared at my door, her face pinched with concern. "Mr. Henderson needs to see you," she said quietly. Now. The walk to his office felt longer than it was. My heels clicked against tile in a rhythm that matched my pulse. Henderson sat behind his desk, expression unreadable, and gestured to the chair across from him. "Close the door, please." I did. He touched his computer mouse, and Preston's voice filled the room, slurred, frantic. The words tumbled over each other in a cascade of accusations that would be laughable if they weren't so venomous. "My sister is having a complete mental breakdown. She's addicted to prescription opioids. We have proof she's been embezzling from client accounts to feed her habit. We need to meet with management immediately before she hurts someone or herself. This is a family intervention. She's dangerous. The voicemail ended. Silence settled like dust. Henderson leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. His eyes, sharp and assessing behind wire-rimmed glasses, never left my face. Do you need our legal department to handle this defamation, Addison? My hands rested flat on the armrests. Steady. No, sir. I prefer to let the FBI handle it. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise. Recognition, maybe. Like he was seeing exactly what he expected to see. I thought you might say that. He saved the recording to a file, then swiveled his monitor toward me. I'm copying this to your personal drive. Document everything. And Addison? Take whatever time you need. The partners have been briefed. Your reputation here is spotless. I stood, legs somehow solid beneath me. Thank you, sir. One more thing. He tapped a pen against his desk calendar. Your brother left his callback number. I thought you might want it for your FBI file. I almost smiled. Almost. Back at my desk, I added Preston's voicemail to my evidence folder. The timestamp. The callback number. The specific claims. All of it cataloged with the same precision I'd use for any financial crime investigation. My phone rang at 11:47 a.m. Unknown number. I answered on the third ring. Addison? It's Aunt Linda. I hadn't heard her voice in a decade. Not since grandmother's funeral, when she'd cornered me by the punch bowl to complain about the flower arrangements. Hello, Linda. I've been hearing such concerning things about this situation with your father. Her tone dripped with practiced sympathy. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. You need to be the bigger person here, sweetheart. You're ruining your father's reputation over money. Family protects family. I opened my laptop while she talked. My fingers navigated through folders I'd organized weeks ago when I first started the forensic autopsy of Sterling's finances. Linda's voice continued, a steady stream of manipulation disguised as concern. Your mother is beside herself. Preston says you've frozen their accounts. Over what? A simple misunderstanding about a loan? Surely we can all sit down like adults and work this out. I found the file. Clicked it open. Attached it to an email with Linda's address already entered in the recipient line. Check your inbox, Linda. She paused mid-sentence. What? I just sent you a PDF. That's a copy of a check Dad wrote 3 years ago. He cashed out your son's college savings bond. The one Grandma left him in her will. Used it to pay for his country club membership renewal. He forged your signature on the release paperwork. The silence stretched so long I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. The bond was worth $12,000, I continued. My voice remained level. Conversational, even. I found the transaction while reviewing his account activity. The club charged him $11,200 that year. He deposited the difference into Preston's checking account. I have copies of everything if you'd like to verify with your bank. She didn't speak. Didn't breathe. You should probably check on your mother's jewelry, too. The pieces she left you. I noticed some interesting pawn shop transactions around the same time. The line went dead. I saved the call log. Noted the duration. Added it to the folder. My email pinged. Henderson had sent a message to all partners with the subject line, Personnel Matter. Informational only. I scanned the contents. Professional. Clinical. A brief explanation that a staff member was dealing with family fraud, that false allegations had been made, and that the firm's position was one of complete support for the affected employee. He didn't name me, but anyone paying attention would know. The responses started within minutes. Colleagues offering legal referrals. One senior accountant sharing her own story of family financial exploitation. Another forwarding contact information for a bank investigator who specializes in identity theft cases. By 2 p.m., my accountant friend Sarah had called twice. On the second attempt, I answered. I heard through the grapevine, she said without preamble. Family fraud case. Listen, I've testified as an expert witness in 3 of these. If you need documentation reviewed or someone to explain the forensics to law enforcement, I'm available. Thank you. I mean it, Addison. These cases are winnable. Especially with your skill set. They picked the wrong person to scam. The bank investigator's email arrived at 3:30 p.m. Subject line, FBI Financial Crimes Unit contact. Inside was a name, Agent Miller. A direct phone number. A note explaining that my case matched the profile for federal wire fraud prosecution. I drafted a response, but didn't send it yet. There was still one more thing to check. The Veterans Memorial Fund maintained public filings as a registered nonprofit. I'd known this for weeks. What I hadn't done was cross-reference the fund's financial reports with Sterling's personal account activity. I did it now. The wire transfers appeared like breadcrumbs. Small amounts. Staggered across months. Always just under reporting thresholds. From the fund's account to Sterling Consulting Group. That hollow shell company with a rusted mailbox and no actual business operations. From there, the money split. Some to Preston's accounts. Some to cover Sterling's personal expenses. All of it stolen from donations meant for disabled veterans. I totaled the figures. $85,000 over 2 years. My hands didn't shake as I compiled the timeline. Transaction dates. Bank routing numbers. The fund's public statements promising support for wounded soldiers while Sterling siphoned donations into his son's gambling addiction. The family lawyer's cease and desist letter arrived via email at 4:15 p.m. I read it once. The threats were predictable. Retract all fraud claims. Pay $150,000 for emotional distress. Stop harassing the family immediately or face legal consequences. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound startling in my quiet office. Then I opened my FBI documentation folder and added one final section, Veterans Memorial Fund embezzlement. Wire fraud across state lines. Federal charges. Not local civil disputes. The folder was comprehensive now. Complete. Every transaction traced. Every lie documented. Every theft proven beyond reasonable doubt. I sent Agent Miller the email requesting a meeting. Attached nothing yet. Just a brief professional inquiry about discussing potential federal fraud charges. His response arrived within 20 minutes. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. FBI field office downtown. I printed the folder contents. All of it. Pages and pages of evidence. Organized chronologically. Labeled clearly. I placed everything in a manila folder and wrote across the tab in permanent marker, Sterling Clark. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Veterans Fund. Embezzlement. My office emptied as colleagues headed home. The sun angled lower through my window, casting long shadows across my desk. I sat with the folder in front of me, hands resting on either side. Tomorrow morning. FBI field office. Agent Miller. No turning back after this. I closed my eyes and thought of grandmother's lake house. The real one. Before my parents sold it to cover Preston's debts. The dock where I used to sit with morning coffee, watching sunrise paint the water gold. The silence that felt like peace instead of punishment. They stole that from me. But they also made a crucial mistake. They stole from veterans. From people who sacrificed everything. People whose stories matter to federal prosecutors and juries and judges. I opened my eyes and slid the folder into my briefcase. Tomorrow morning, I walk into that FBI office and hand over everything. Tomorrow, the walking ATM stops making deposits and starts making withdrawals. The following day, Agent Miller closed the folder and looked at me across the metal desk. 3 hours had passed since I walked into this FBI field office. My coffee went cold somewhere around hour 2. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the same relentless hum I'd heard in every government building. This is federal wire fraud with aggravating factors, Miller said. His voice was flat, professional. Veterans Fund involvement elevates priority. I handed him the encrypted drives. 2 of them, both containing identical copies of everything. 5 years of transactions. Shell company formations. Wire transfer receipts. Forged signatures. The kind of evidence that makes prosecutors salivate. We'll open a formal investigation within 48 hours, Miller continued. He was younger than I expected. Maybe 40. with the kind of exhausted eyes that suggested he'd seen too many families destroy each other over money. You should prepare for your family to escalate when they realize what's happening. I almost laughed. They've already disowned me and tried to take out a loan in my name. How much worse can it get? Miller didn't smile. You'd be surprised. 2 days later, I found out exactly what he meant. I was reviewing the Patterson account when my phone started buzzing. Not the usual single notification, but a sustained vibration that suggested something had gone viral. I unlocked the screen and saw 47 text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Then I opened Nextdoor. Preston's post sat at the top of our neighborhood feed, and the comment count was climbing by the second. The timestamp showed he'd published it 20 minutes ago. My sister Addison is spreading lies about our family. She's claiming money is missing from the Veterans Memorial Fund. But the truth is, she's just bitter about being written out of Dad's will. The $85,000 she's talking about was just a temporary loan to help our family through a rough patch. We intended to pay it back next month. She's weaponizing a private family matter to destroy Dad's reputation in this community. Don't believe her lies. I read it twice. My pulse steady. My hands completely still on the desk. He confessed. In writing. To embezzlement. On a public forum. The comments were already brutal. Barbara Henderson, from 3 streets over. Wait. So you're admitting the money went missing? Mark Sullivan, whose son served in Afghanistan, a temporary loan from a veterans fund? Are you serious right now? I screenshotted everything before Preston could delete it. Then I watched as dozens of people did the same thing, the posts spreading through our wealthy suburb like wildfire. My phone rang. Mr. Henderson. Have you seen Nextdoor? He asked. Currently watching Preston dig his own grave in real time. Good. Because I just forwarded it to our legal department. They want you to know this constitutes written evidence of embezzlement. He paused. Also, Sterling's at the country club right now. Might want to check those Ring camera groups you're in. I didn't have to wait long. The first video appeared within minutes, uploaded by Jennifer Morrison with the caption, "When keeping it real goes wrong." The footage showed Sterling approaching the country club entrance. Shoulders back. That familiar, arrogant tilt to his chin. The manager intercepted him. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I watched Sterling's face change when his membership card was declined. His mouth moved. Animated. Angry. Do you know who I am? The manager gestured to security. 2 men in polo shirts appeared, flanking my father. He was still talking. Still posturing. But they were already guiding him toward the exit. The camera followed his walk of shame past the dining room, where at least 30 members were watching. Several had their phones out. A second video appeared from a different angle. This one had audio. This is outrageous. Sterling's voice carried across the entrance hall. I've been a member here for 20 years. The board received some concerning emails this morning, the manager said, his tone professionally neutral. Your membership is suspended pending investigation. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. The board members worked fast. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. Local station MAC had picked up the story. North Shore nonprofit under investigation. Allegations of embezzlement from Veterans Memorial Fund. The article was brief, carefully worded to avoid libel. But it mentioned Sterling by name as the suspended treasurer. It quoted the board president. We take these allegations extremely seriously and are cooperating fully with authorities. Within an hour, the story spread to 3 more local news sites. My inbox filled with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some offered support. Others asked for details I couldn't provide. I deleted them all and focused on the pattern I was watching unfold. Preston's post had been screenshotted and shared to 4 different Facebook groups. Sterling's country club video had 73,000 views. The Veterans Memorial Fund story was trending on local Twitter. The trap was springing exactly as I built it. Public exposure. Community outrage. Institutional response. Each piece falling into place with the precision of a well-balanced ledger. By evening, the family unity fractured in a way I didn't even need to engineer. My neighbor forwarded me another Ring camera video. This time, it was from Sterling's front porch. My mother, Meredith, stood with an envelope in her hand, staring at a utility disconnect notice. I watched her hands shake as she tried to process what she was seeing. She pulled out her phone, presumably checking their bank accounts, and her face went pale. She didn't know yet. She hadn't checked the wall safe where Sterling kept the emergency cash. But she was starting to suspect. The next video arrived an hour later. Preston's car in my parents' driveway. The argument was audible even through the door. "You got caught because you were sloppy with the books." Preston's voice, high-pitched and panicked. "I wouldn't have needed to touch the fund if you didn't have a gambling addiction." Sterling, loud enough for neighbors to hear. My mother's voice cut through. "Both of you shut up. Do you realize what Addison has done? Everything is frozen. Everything." I saved all 3 videos to my evidence folder. Then I opened my email and found the message I'd been waiting for. Subject line, "Search warrant approved." Agent Miller's note was brief. "Execution scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Recommend you stay clear of the area." I wouldn't be anywhere near my parents' house when the FBI arrived. I'd be here, in my office, doing exactly what I do best. Balancing ledgers. Documenting patterns. Watching the numbers tell their inexorable truth. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Meredith. "Please, Addison. We can fix this. We're family." I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up the federal indictment draft Agent Miller shared with me this afternoon. 3 names listed as defendants. 3 sets of charges. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Identity theft. Conspiracy. The paperwork was beautiful in its precision. Every transaction documented. Every lie cataloged. Every attempt at manipulation turned into evidence. I closed my laptop and looked out my office window at the city's skyline. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere across the city, my family was tearing itself apart. Fighting over blame. Scrambling for cash that didn't exist. Realizing finally that the walking ATM had closed her accounts permanently. Tomorrow morning, federal agents would knock on their door with a search warrant. Tomorrow afternoon, boxes of evidence would be carried out in front of the neighbors. Tomorrow evening, the local news would have footage of my father in handcuffs. But tonight, I sat in the quiet of my office and felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. Peace. The battering ram hit the door at 6:03 a.m. I was already awake when my phone lit up with the news alert. I was at my office. I hadn't gone home last night, waiting for this moment. FBI executes search warrant at suburban home. The article didn't name Sterling yet, but I knew. I'd requested the courtesy notification from Agent Miller. Professional courtesy, investigator to investigator. I poured my coffee and watched the live helicopter feed on my laptop. The suburban street I grew up on looked smaller from above. The house where I spent 16 years working 2 jobs to prove my worth was now surrounded by black SUVs, agents in windbreakers. Neighbors clustered on lawns in bathrobes and slippers, phones out, recording everything. The doorbell camera footage would be excellent this time. Intentional. By 7:30, the local news had cameras on scene. I recognized the reporter, a blonde woman in a purple blazer who usually covered city council meetings. She was practically vibrating with excitement, microphone pointed at the house while agents carried out boxes, computers, filing cabinets, the kind of seizure that makes excellent television. Sterling's Mercedes wasn't in the driveway. I zoomed in on the feed. Meredith stood on the front steps, hands pressed to her mouth, mascara already tracking down her cheeks. An agent was speaking to her, gesturing back toward the house. She was shaking her head, hysterical in the way she'd always been hysterical when things didn't go her way. The performance fell flat without an audience who cared. My second monitor showed the neighborhood next door feed. 53 comments already. Screenshots of Preston's deleted confession post, making the rounds again, shared and reshared. Someone posted a link to the Veterans Memorial Fund investigation. The schadenfreude was thick enough to choke on. Did you see the FBI at the Clark's house? About time. My cousin is a disabled vet. This makes me sick. I always knew something was off about that family. I closed the browser. Their judgment wasn't mine to manage. At 8:15, Meredith's sister called. I silenced it. Then my mother's book club president. Silence. Then someone from the country club, probably calling to ask if I knew. If I had any comment. If I understood what this meant for the family reputation. There was no family reputation left to protect. Agent Miller texted at 9. Subject not at residence. Vehicle located downtown. CPD notified. Downtown. Chicago. My building. I stood from my desk, coffee forgotten, and walked to the window. The morning sun reflected off glass and steel. Lake Michigan stretched east, gray, and endless. Somewhere down there, Sterling was driving toward me, desperate and stupid and convinced that I was still the person who answered when he called. My intercom buzzed at 9:47 a.m. Miss Clark. There's a Sterling Clark in the lobby requesting access. He's quite insistent. Should I send him up? I pulled up the lobby camera feed on my phone. He looked destroyed. Shirt untucked. Hair wild. Eyes red from crying or rage. Or both. He was pressing the call button repeatedly, leaning into the intercom speaker like proximity would change my answer. Miss Clark. I'll handle it, I said. Alert building security and call Chicago PD. Tell them there's a trespasser who's refusing to leave. I switched to the intercom channel, watching him through the camera. His mouth moved before I pressed the button, already pleading with a speaker that wasn't transmitting. Mr. Clark, I said. My voice echoed through the lobby. He jerked upright, searching for the camera. I have alerted building security and the Chicago PD of a trespasser. You have 2 minutes. Addison. His voice cracked. Please, you have to fix this. I'm your father. I opened my Files app and selected the PDF my attorney emailed this morning. Federal indictment. 19 pages. My name listed under victim witnesses. I airdropped it to his phone. His pocket buzzed. He pulled out the device with shaking hands, squinting at the notification. I watched his face strain of color as he opened the file, scrolling through counts of wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. The FBI is tracking your phone's GPS right now, I said through the intercom. I suggest you leave. He looked up at the camera. For a moment, I thought he might cry. Instead, his expression twisted into something ugly and familiar. Rage. The same rage I saw at 16 when I suggested maybe Preston should get a job instead of another loan. You're destroying this family, he shouted. Everything I did was for us. For you. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Goodbye, Sterling. I disconnected the intercom and watched him run. He made it 2 blocks before 3 squad cars cornered him against a boutique storefront. The takedown was professional efficient. Hands behind his back. Miranda rights delivered on a sidewalk where tourists stopped to film. My phone rang. Agent Miller. We have him, she said. Preston was arrested at his residence 20 minutes ago. Your mother is being questioned as a potential accessory, but we're offering a cooperation deal. The evidence? Solid. The dossier you provided was instrumental. We've got transaction records. Wire transfers. The smithing pattern. The Veterans Fund fraud alone is enough for serious time. But combined with the identity theft and your testimony, this is airtight. I sat back down at my desk. My coffee had gone cold. The grand jury convenes next week, Miller continued. We're expecting indictments within 2 weeks. Multiple counts for your father. Conspiracy and money laundering for your brother. Your mother will likely face reduced charges if she cooperates fully. Thank you, Agent Miller. Miss Clark. She paused. You did the right thing. I ended the call and opened my personal ledger one final time. 5 years of payments. The money they never deserved. I highlighted the entire column and pressed delete. The cell was empty now. Just a header and blank space below. I saved the file and closed my laptop. Outside my window, Chicago continued its morning. Traffic flowed. People walked. The sun climbed higher. Everything moved forward while Sterling sat in a police car, finally facing consequences he'd spent decades avoiding. My intercom buzzed again. Miss Clark, the police have removed the individual. Is there anything else you need? No, I said. Thank you. I picked up my cold coffee, dumped it in the sink, and brewed a fresh cup. There was a Peterson account review at 10 and a team meeting at 11. Work continues. Life continues. The ledger is balanced. The federal courthouse smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. I sat 3 rows back, hands folded in my lap, watching Sterling shuffle into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on his shrinking frame. He didn't look at me. Preston sat on the opposite side, eyes fixed on his shoes. Meredith wasn't here. Her plea deal came with conditions. 6 months. That's how long it took for the system to grind through depositions, plea negotiations, and sentencing hearings. 6 months of sleeping through the night for the first time in years. The judge called my name. I walked to the podium, my heels clicking against marble floors. The courtroom was packed. Veterans groups filled the back rows, their faces weathered and hard. Local news cameras lined the walls, red lights blinking. I unfolded my statement. The paper didn't shake. "Your Honor, members of the court," I began, my voice carrying without effort. I didn't lose a father in this process. I lost a liability. Sterling's head snapped up. Our eyes met for the first time today. I didn't look away. For 5 years, I paid $192,000 toward what I believed was a family obligation. The truth is, I was funding my brother's gambling debts while my parents pocketed the difference. They forged my signature. They lied about property they'd already sold. And when I discovered the truth, they tried to destroy my career rather than face consequences. I folded the paper and stepped back. The judge nodded, made a note, and began reading the sentences. Sterling, 5 years in federal prison for wire fraud and identity theft. Preston, probation, permanent felony record, restitution payments he'd never finish. Meredith, house seized, now living in state-subsidized senior housing 40 minutes from anyone she knew. The gavel fell. It sounded final. 3 weeks later, I sat on my own dock, drinking coffee as the sun rose over water that belonged to me. The deed arrived yesterday. My name printed in neat black letters. No cosigners. No hidden clauses. Just Addison Clark. Sole owner. The cabin was small. 1 bedroom. A kitchen with mismatched cabinets. A porch that needed new boards. I bought it with the money I saved. No more $3,200 monthly payments. No more Photoshop tax bills. No more checking my bank account 3 times a day, waiting for the next forged signature. This lake was different from grandmother's. Quieter. No memories of childhood summers or family promises. Just water and trees and the occasional loon calling across the surface. The silence used to hurt. When my mother would go days without returning calls. When my father would sit across from me at dinner and talk only about invoices and interest rates. That silence felt like punishment. Like I wasn't worth the effort of conversation. This silence heals. I opened my journal, the leather cover soft from handling. The pages were full now. Months of processing narcissistic family dynamics with Dr. Morgan. Writing down revelations that felt obvious in hindsight but impossible to see while living them. I wrote, "Love isn't measured in dollars. Duty doesn't mean doormat." My phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Henderson. "Congratulations on the promotion, senior forensic consultant. Well deserved. The firm gave me a raise last month. More responsibility. More complicated cases. I'd started specializing in family fraud cases. Helping other people untangle financial abuse from people who claim to love them. The work matters in ways my old audits never did." Aunt Linda's son sent flowers to my new address. The card read, "You saved my college fund. Grandfather stole it years ago. Thank you for telling the truth. Chosen family, I'm learning, means more than shared blood." I closed my journal and set down my coffee cup. The wine would come later, at sunset, when the water turned gold and the air cooled. For now, I just sit. No anxiety. No obsessive account checking. No wondering if this month's payment cleared or whether my father would text demanding more. I pulled out my journal one more time and wrote the final entry. For years, I balanced their books. Now I've balanced my life. The ledger shows what I always suspected. I was never the debt. I was the asset they couldn't afford to keep. I closed the journal and watched the sun climb higher. The ledger was finally balanced.